line to you that I've achieved 7 impossible things before breakfast. But I don't want to bore the people over here as to what those amazing 7 impossible things were. One was to wake up, of course. But really interesting, since I'm talking from the UK, it's 8:30 in the morning over here, for some context. Really interesting thing. One impossible thing is happening right now, which is the influencer economy is actually kind of maturing. And I thought
Yeah.
that we could give our hot take on the influencer economy. So why don't you help us set up this conversation with what's really happening out there, and then maybe we can give our takes on it.
Yeah, sure. So we've seen a sudden rise, a certain rise, in fact, in the influencer economy that has more or less bashed out the celebrity endorsements too,
Yeah.
right? So in the last 4 years, we've seen around 322% growth in the
Yes.
influencer marketing economy.
Yes.
And for brands, they are dedicating around 10 to 12% in the digital ad spends. That is primarily the creator economy or UGC content or influencer content,
Yes.
right? So, but now we are seeing another kind of a shift. Earlier, it used to be mega celebrities, mega influencers that had 10 million plus followers, and so that brands were running after that they would devote all of their budget towards. But now brands seem to be shifting towards macro, micro, and even nano influencers, and primarily nano influencers to say around 47%.
Yeah.
So that is a, I mean, I think that is a very good evolution towards the influencer marketing, the way it was always supposed to be.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, what is your take on why we are going there, and what's the future looking
Yeah,
like?
no. First of all, when really top-notch influencers are becoming celebrities of their own sort, and celebrities are becoming influencers, right, on Instagram or on TikTok or on YouTube, what we do realize is that that becomes price parity. It's like India starts off as a low-cost shop, outsourcing shop for the US to develop its software, but over a period of time arbitrage kind of goes down, costs go up, etc., and so it impacts things. So that's the typical argument that I'm hearing in the market as to why people are shifting towards, let's say, micro influencers and nano influencers and stuff. But I'm not totally convinced about that as the only argument. I think the second argument is about metrics. The second argument states that okay, we are now changing metrics from awareness and outreach to something
Yeah.
which is more like engaging and something engagement and conversations, and this is where your communities come in. And I think that's the second metric, which is interesting by itself, and I agree with whatever has been said so far. My third metric is I believe that the way beginning to understand influencers and their impact from a
Mhm.
qualitative perspective is undergoing a radical shift. So the more data that is coming in, and this is only for those few who want to go beyond the reasons number one and two, I think the qualitative shift in the kinds of conversations that are going to happen at a nano level and the kinds of conversations that are going to happen at a macro level or whatever are very different. So it's a combination of these three metrics, and I would say that that is a maturing of the influencer-led, economy.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. So earlier there used to be one kind of product that people wanted to sell out into the market. So
Yes.
awareness was very important. But right now, with a lot of D2C companies coming in, and they all coming up with similar kind of products, it becomes very important the kind of conversations that you're having on your social pages, or the kind of messaging that your influencers are spreading across. Now, with your nano influencers or micro influencers, it becomes easier for brands to control the kind of conversations that happen, or rather, spread out the kind of conversations that happen that don't bucket you in one specific niche, and you can just zoom out for different kind of audiences to even test your market. So even in the awareness phase, it makes sense to have your nano influencer, so you can test out which target audience fits your is your product fit market basically.
No, you've said something really interesting, which means that you can use nano influencers to find out what is sticking. You
Hmm.
see, what is really interesting, and I want to take a step back over here and discuss this.
Yeah.
See, if you're going to get influencers to push out your product or service the same way in which celebrities were doing it, on say legacy media, I would say, then you're doing the same thing. You're not doing anything different. And obviously, that is going to get fatigue, that is going to get lesser and lesser friction. And therefore, it is going to have the similar problems that legacy media and the advertising model actually had. So, when I say qualitatively different, it means that you have to step away from advertising and saying, okay, here's our product, here's the script, and now, influencer, you say it in your own way. I
Yeah.
think you need to now go beyond that and actually understand how does an influencer actually work, and how is it different from the way in which the legacy media come celebrities actually work. And therein lies the rub. So whether it's a nano influencer or whether it's a micro or a mega influencer, what we have to understand is that the way in which they're communicating with their communities is qualitatively different, and it cannot be advertising. You see, that is the biggest problem. And then you suddenly say, okay, so what should then, how can the brand actually be placed? And there are many, many ways in which a brand can actually create awareness, create demand for itself, create, conversion and loyalty without using the advertising model. But then they have to let go of a lot of their so-called control over the narrative. And this is where your influencer economy is going to mature, because we are figuring out that, okay, this model itself is not working at across the customer journey. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and it brings to mind an example. So, when Fevicol had started out, how it actually grew
Yeah.
was they got in touch with the car painters,
Yeah.
right? So these were the people who influenced the customers who were going to buy. So it no longer became that a customer would go to a shop and buy a white glue. It
Yeah.
was the carpenter suggesting to the house owners that I need Fevicol, and who was going to argue with a carpenter? He knows the best, right?
Yes.
So in a way, those carpenters, they became the influencers for Fevicol without even getting into the whole advertising model. Now
Absolutely.
we are seeing the same kind of flurry into the market where people already know about the product. You have Google in your hands, you have ChatGPT in your hands. You can always figure out what the product is. What you need to understand is why that product fits me and nobody else. How does it fit into my lifestyle? Right.
Exactly.
And this is, I think, where the influencers, especially a very small scale influencers that can understand these pain points
Yes.
of a bunch of customers, can actually speak to them, resonate with them much more, and make them into brand loyalists.
Yeah. No. So if I'm just adding to your point over here, I think influencers were used for, let's say, amplification. Influencers now can be used for research into
Mm,
understanding what trends are working, and
yeah,
if there is a product market or a content market fit for your product, and whatever really big trend as to how influencers can be used. The second way in which influencers are actually or can be used is is this influencer creating a trend or following a trend? Is this influencer expanding the conversation or bringing it to a close? So, the moment you start actually understanding influences from these qualitative inputs, the way in which you would actually structure those conversations itself would be different. So,
yeah.
rather than look at it from a very broad based perspective, which is again a legacy media thing, what we need to do is, what is this influencer achieving through his or her normal communication? Are they opening up minds? Are they talking about existing trends? Are they starting new trends? What? And then your brand can actually, you know, find its way through. How does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense. And it helps you roadmap and structure the kind of messaging that you want to put out, and the staging of messaging also, depending on your market, depending on your funnel, and all of these things.
Yeah,
Right.
no. So this is why I believe that storytelling, and this is a shameless plug for Xtail. This is why storytelling becomes really critical to understand at a nuanced level. It is very easy and fashionable to talk about storytelling and how influencers are messengers and all of that, but you have to get into story arcs. You have to understand archetypes. You have to understand what influencers are achieving at a qualitative level, and then get into the whole thick of things about how do I create those conversations. It's very easy to be glib, which a lot of agencies are guilty of doing. It is
Yeah.
very difficult to be nuanced, and this is where the world is going, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. No, true, true. I mean, the conversation has shifted from I have a very big budget, so I have Virat Kohli as my influencer,
Acha.
from to this is my story and this is what I want to put out there.
Yeah.
And I think that this is exactly where why influencer marketing had come into picture in the first place. Because celebrity endorsement though might give you some shine and glory, but it will never give you the kind of authenticity and the relatability that I mean, what is an Alia Bhatt doing in a TMT pipe ad, right? Right. So this is where you need influencers that belong to that industry, who can speak to the people who have the similar kind of pain point, and you can channel out your story in such a way.
I think just to end this one, I think
Yeah.
we're going to lose the word influencer and use a lot of the word creator quite soon. Because I think that there is a shift, and perhaps that is the topic for a new discussion at an appropriate time for us to get into, as to how influences themselves are shifting and turning and changing. And I'm getting all this gyan from my younger daughter, because she always complains that I don't credit her for all the wisdom that she imparts me. But her being a true blue influencer herself, or a creator as she calls herself, it is a fascinating discussion. Maybe we'll get her on one of our LinkedIn lives soon,
Oh,
and
that will be wonderful.
yeah, that'll be fun. I will kind of pitch this as I go for my post breakfast walk over here, having done all of my work for the day, 7 impossible things. But thank you so much, guys, for being here on this wonderful, wonderful day and the maturing of the influencer economy.
Thank you for listening in.
Yeah.